Ladies and gentlemen, dads and down the hatches, we'd like to introduce you to the greatest late-night combat sports show bar none. You are now in the Beatdown.
You wanna get beat down?
Let us now introduce you to your host, the Badger, and
Yo, Fighter Share Nation, what's going on? Yeah, it looks a little strange tonight. I know. There's not a rotund guy sitting to this would be my left. Whatever. My homeboy's out tonight, so it's your boy flying solo. I know this might be new for some of y'all, so we're gonna ride this thing out. We're gonna make it do what it do, baby. In the meantime, hope everybody's doing well out there. I've had a pretty interesting day myself. And it's coming to an end, but not before we get our therapy session in. But we get to talk about combat sports. Anything else that y'all want to ramble on about, I'm here for it. So please feel free to drop a comment, ask a question. If not, I'm just gonna ramble on until I get tired of rambling, and we're gonna cut this shit off. Well, in the meantime, we here. A couple things I want to address really quick. What is going on uh, with these with just the amount of weird stuff that's happening on social media? Like it's getting kind of out of hand. Um, for those of you that are under a rock, there's a clip going around of this guy that was shot 7 times in Wisconsin. I think Kenosha. I'm not sure what that is, but anyway, um, the initial clip that I saw did not look favorable. Um, because he was attempting to go back into his car. I have read several different stories where there was nothing in the car. He was unarmed. I'm not sure, but it was 3 cops. The man didn't have a weapon. He was walking back to the car. One of the officers tried to pull his shirt, and in the end result, he was shot 7 times in the back. Um, so I guess we'll sit back and see how they spin this one. I'm sure they're gonna bring up his past if they already haven't, and if he has any type of criminal record, then they'll use that as to why he was a bad person, and then they'll talk about this did and why he was walking back to the car, and the cops didn't know if he had a gun, and even though he was in front of his children, they'll automatically throw that out and say the man deserved to die for whatever he did. Death was his punishment, and I just think that's a little bit ridiculous. We fall into this cycle a little bit too much, where we're quick to judge people based upon the merits of police officers, and we know that police officers, not only are they human like everybody else, but sometimes they're the worst people. So it'll be interesting to see how they spin this story. Um, Condolences to his family. I mean, to see your dad get murdered in front of you, that's got to be tough enough. So just in case anybody wanted to bring it up, I just want to go ahead and clear the air with that. We ain't gonna spend too much time talking about that because this is a combat sports channel. That's what we talk about. Oh, Pops, what's going on? That's my boy, man. Pops riding. Listen, Pops, you holding me down, man. You holding me down. I definitely appreciate you still tuning in. And don't worry, you ain't gotta ask. I will send you the information tomorrow. I think they're open tomorrow, and I will get that for you and get it on the way. So yeah, I haven't forgotten about you. So yeah, let's talk about some of these fights we had over the weekend. Um, Sean Porter, man. I mean, I don't know if we got the chance to touch on it enough on the Fighter Share report yesterday, but I'm impressed. Sean Porter always comes ready to fight. Sean Porter is a guy that, to me, he looks like he did not take the COVID break that a lot of guys have, that they look like they've taken. They don't come into the ring sharp. Not only was Sean Porter on weight, Sean Porter looked good. He was explosive. He looked good. I mean, some of his timing may have been off here and there, and that's just natural because he hasn't been fighting and probably hasn't been doing a whole lot of really like live sparring either. But Sean looked good, man. He looked explosive. He looked quick. He looked hungry, and he was the vintage Sean Porter we were used to seeing. Sean Porter is an interesting case, but he's a guy that if there's any morality or any moral in losing, he would be the poster child for it. Um, he's been in a couple big fights, and he always seems to come up short. Came up short against Keith. Came up short against Earl Spence. Both were great fights. I mean, he looked the part. I mean, he fought his ass off and had a good showing of himself, but he came up short. Um, he was beaten by Kell Brook a few years back, so he's lost to only the elite of the elite. But they're all losses. And somehow his stock is continuing to rise. And I think that what really set Sean Porter apart is that we know that he's one of these guys in the new age of boxing where they put the business before the task. And I will say this, man, Sean Porter will fight anybody. And if Terrence Crawford really want that Sean Porter fight, they can make that fight happen. I know those two young men are, they're friends. I don't know how close they are, but they're friends. Um, but make no mistake about it, Sean Porter's not afraid to fight anybody. Earl Spence, Keith Thurman, Kell Brook, Danny Garcia, Adrian Broner. I mean, that is the murderer's row. I mean, no, all of those guys are at one point or another, or may still be ranked in the top 10 pound for pound at some point. And for him to have fought all of them in their primes just really says a lot about Sean. So, I always want to tip a hat to him for, not only being a good steward of the sport, but also handling himself like a mature adult most of the time, all the time, as far as I know. The few times I've had conversations with him in person, he was very polite, very cordial. And then, too, just being a consummate professional, always ready to go, never disappointing. So if PBC decides to put Sean Porter back in a rematch with Keith Thurman because Pac-Man won't give Thurman a rematch, or because he can't get the Terrence Crawford fight, which based upon what he was asking for, we knew that wasn't going to happen before the negotiation even started, or before they even made contact. Keith was asking for $10 million. You knew that was out of that wasn't going to happen. But, yeah, Sean Porter, I can't say enough about the guy. And I'm looking forward to seeing him fight again, man. I mean, and the guy he fought was no slouch. And what I mean by that is he came ready to fight. He had a game plan, and he was durable. Sean Porter is not a very big puncher, but he's an effective puncher, and he's a mauler. It's constant pressure. And this kid from Germany, I think his name was Formella, if my memory doesn't evade me there, put up a great fight. I mean, the fight went the distance. Sean was trying to get the stoppage, but this kid was tough, and he boxed really well, especially going backwards. His jab was pretty good. Again, if there's any moral in defeat, if there's a silver lining in a loss, that kid from Germany will probably be getting more phone calls. I mean, he just went toe-to-toe with pound for pound one of the best welterweights in the world. Definitely a top 5, top 6 welterweight. And he stood toe-to-toe with him. Didn't break, didn't fold. Was hurt a couple times, but never really showed it. I mean, this is a win for PBC. Looking at some of the notes, it looks like they outperformed the UFC and NHL hockey all in the same night. And for that to not to be, for this particular card, not to be a championship fight, or not to have an opponent that you felt like was a live dog, I mean, that says a lot about PBC and Fox and how they've been promoting, and, what they've been doing to, ever since they've gotten back into the fray, to just really establish their brand and continue to, show that they're probably the best promotion out there. They're definitely the biggest because they have the most fighters. But, yeah, hats off to Sean Porter and Formella. That was a good fight. I also want to give a shout out to Justin DeLoach, man. Jip was a friend of the show. Jip was on with us probably about 2.5, 3 months ago. He was one of our first guests when we revamped the show and started the Beatdown. And DeLoach was such a cool dude. Talked about his music career and what it was like coming up in Augusta, being a fighter out of a place where, Augusta's not a hotbed for boxing. And they put out a few guys, but it's not a hotbed. And I think Justin DeLoach he has a home at 47. I think it was a little bit too small for 54. But he's a tough, gritty kid, and he put on a pretty good performance. He need to get back into the win column. He needed a stoppage, I'm sure, not just for his brand and for his self-esteem, but also to put the boxing reel back on notice that, this kid is still here. He's still game. and those setbacks he had at 54, you know, are just bumps in the road, and he's ready to go at 47. I see Deloach being a problem at 47. One, because he's young. Two, he's going to be a tough out because he was a pretty tough out at 54. I mean, he had his losses, but he was a tough fighter at 54, and he hung in there. So I don't see 47 being too much of an issue for him. And he's going to be the bigger guy, too. And a lot of these fights, man, you know, I think he's a natural welterweight, don't get me wrong. But he has a pretty good frame on him. And I can see him getting pretty big after he rehydrates at 47, man. I want to see the kid do well. He's with the right promotion. He's with PBC. All the guys in 47 are at PBC. So Justin DeLoach is going to get a lot of looks. Maurice Hooker, Regis Prograde, those guys came over as well. I'll talk about those guys in a moment as also. But yeah, Justin DeLoach had a good performance. He got a TKO stoppage, I think, in the first round. Body shots. I think he put the guy down twice, 3 times, and they stopped the fight. But good performance. You didn't really get to see a whole lot, except that he came in shape. He was ready to go, and he did what he had to do. So shouts out to Justin DeLoach. Shouts out to Augusta, Georgia. Everybody representing for him. I hope he continues to prosper and do well. Music career. Hope that works out for him. His clothing line, Barely Ordinary. I hope that takes off. He's a good dude, and I want to see him do well. So shouts out to DeLoach. Another thing that we talked about here on our show that will get swept under the rug because you know we don't quite have the subscribership we want. But I said this a couple months back that I thought Regis Prograis and Adrian Broner would be a good fight. This is when Regis was still signed to Lou DiBella and still primarily fighting strictly on that DAZN Matchroom side of the fence. Um, I am really looking forward to that fight. I see AB and I see Regis fighting. Not only I think I read where he only has a one fight promotional deal with PBC, but I think that's just to kind of get his feet wet, get him familiar with the people he'll be working with, and for PBC to kind of get a good litmus test on where he is as far as being a fighter and how they can match him up going forward. They're not going to throw him in with Adrian Broner right away. He's going to get a soft touch. I think on the undercard, the Garcia Spence card, if I'm not mistaken, I think he'll be on that card. If that's not, I think that's what I read earlier. He has a bomb with the Charlos. All those guys came up together. I think they all started in Louisiana, and then the Charlos left and relocated, and then Regis, because of the hurricane, relocated to Houston, reconnected with those guys, so he has a relationship with them. I see Regis doing well. I like Regis at 40. I think Regis is a serious contender at 40. I like to see him get another crack at Josh Taylor. That was a very good fight. I thought Taylor won the fight, but I thought there's some things that Regis probably could have done better. He could have boxed behind his jab better. He could have been first more often. And he could have just tried to box more than trying to fight Taylor because Taylor was really the better boxer in that fight. Regis made it tough because he's an old school throwback fighter. He's not going to quit. He's going to continue to come forward. But sometimes when you're in there with world-class opposition like a Josh Taylor, you have to switch it up a little bit. I don't think he really did enough of that. May have cost him the decision, but either way, I think that fight merits a rematch. 140 is deep. So, I think a rematch with Josh Taylor is good. I think they can make that happen. But I also see a fight with Adrian Broner. Now that he's with PBC, he can probably get Jose Ramirez. Don't know if Uncle Bob will do business like that, but he's going to have to do business because of Terrence Crawford. Maybe they can switch some things up. But, yeah, there's a lot of good fights at 40 for Regis program. Excited for him to be on this side, at least just for one fight. Let's see how it goes. And then let the chips fall where they may. But him leaving Lou DiBella, COVID is wreaking havoc on every industry known to man. And in this particular industry, boxing is no different. The mid-level promoters are going to have a tough time sustaining right now because they don't have the revenue or the ability to just make fights happen right now. Promoters are trying, but it's really getting tough on those middle to lower tier promoters. So it's time for the big boys to eat, and this is what we're seeing in our society now. For the last probably 5 years, this has been the time of acquisitions and mergers. And it seems like they're happening on a bigger level and on a multinational level. And what boxing is no different. You're going to see Top Rank, PBC, Matchroom, DAZN. You're going to see all these promotions slowly start to swallow up these guys that, to a degree, are still being incubated at that mid level by these different mid level promoters, and they're going to have to be ready to go because these big promoters, they have a lot of fights to put on. They're not trying to waste time. They're not really going to be wasting time trying to groom guys that have already kind of cut their teeth a little bit on other promoters. They're going to bring them right in and throw them right into the lion's den. So uh, you guys got to be ready. You got to be ready because you don't know when COVID's going to call you in to be a replacement. And you got to be ready because if your promoter says, hey, I can't afford to get you fights, you're better off going to a Top Rank. You're better off going to a Matchroom, DAZN. You're better off going to a PBC because they can keep you active. But they're not going to call you. They're not going to hold your hand. They're going to throw you right in the fire. So, a lot of these guys have a lot to be preparing for and a lot to be on the lookout for. It's going to be an interesting time. But I will say this, combat sports is winning. I tried watching the NBA. Just can't really get into it. I don't know if I'm still bitter because the Spurs lost Kawhi or it's because it's just weird to kind of watch with no fans. It looks almost like a scrimmage. So, right now, combat sports is winning. Combat sports is winning because no matter if there's a crowd there or not, there's a real fight going on here. And you can't fake that. And you can't play that. And I think that's what kind of gives combat sports the advantage right now, what's going on with this pandemic. But I didn't want to dovetail too far from that. Let's bring it back to the guys I was talking about. Maurice Hooker, another guy that was, I think Maurice was with Matchroom DAZN, if I'm not mistaken. Or was he with Top Rank? Sheesh. He might have been with, I think he was with Matchroom DAZN. I think he was. Call me on that if I'm wrong, Fighter Share Nation. Let me know if I'm incorrect about that. But I think he was with Matchroom DAZN. At any rate, he's come over to the PBC now, and I think he's moving up to 47. So look for Maurice Hooker to get some fights his way. I mean, PBC is going to throw him in there. They're going to give him maybe one touch, at most two touches, and they're going to put him right in the fire. Again, Maurice Hooker is an established pro. He was a contender at 140. Had a tough loss to Jose Ramirez, but the guy can fight, and he'll be able to come over here and earn decent money with PBC. And I think he also signed a one-fight deal. He'll ride that out until this fight and see where the chips fall. But I think all these guys will end up re-signing with PBC after that one-fight deal. There was also a heavyweight fight that happened that I see a lot of people excited about, a lot of people talking about it. The only reason why that fight intrigued most people was because Dillian White had been advocating for the fight against Wilder for quite some time, and he was the mandatory number one for the WBC. So that fight would happen once Fury and Wilder, resolved their obligation to fight each other. Then he would get to fight the winner of the trilogy, whether it be Wilder or Fury. He would be next in line. Well, guess what? COVID happened. That date keeps getting pushed back. In the meantime, Eddie Hearn was able to give him a fight with Povetkin, who is a solid heavyweight. In Povetkin's prime, he was tough. But we've seen Povetkin in his last few fights not look that good. We saw him go to distance with Michael Hunter, and a lot of people thought Michael Hunter won that fight. Michael Hunter had just moved up from cruiserweight and took on a natural heavyweight, and in some people's eyes won that fight. So stock wasn't really high on Povetkin, right? Then Povetkin shows up and sends Dillian White to bed. Like all the way out. And the crazy part about it was you got to give Povetkin credit for being the seasoned vet that he was, that he is, and setting up those shots on Dillian White. I watched the replay, and it was just so slick the way he did it. The slick feint, right, as if he was going to come up with the hook, and then just came right under, man. Just right under his guard, caught him lacking, as the kids say. He was lacking, and they got him, and he was out of there. And, part of me feels bad for Dillian White because he's been waiting and waiting and waiting for that Wilder fight, and it's never going to happen now. It's never, even if Wilder loses to Fury, Wilder won't fight Dillian White. I think that ship has sailed. So, good win for Povetkin. Now, the crazy part about it is Where does Povetkin go from here? Because before we get too high on the hog and praising Povetkin for a great fight, especially for a guy in his 40s, Povetkin has also popped dirty twice for um, for failed drug tests. Not sure what the substances were, but I know he popped dirty. In one instance, he popped dirty was when he was getting ready to fight Deontay Wilder. And if anybody remembers, that was a clip where Wilder got really emotional talking about how he's been training and he just don't understand why guys take shortcuts, so on and so forth. That was who he was referring to. He was preparing for Povetkin. Well, try saying that fast. He was preparing for Povetkin, and when he found out Povetkin popped dirty, of course the fight was off, and he had to turn his focus to somewhere else. I forgot who stepped in replacement of Povetkin, but we don't want to give too much credence there. I mean, good win for Povetkin, but in boxing, unfortunately, once you get caught cheating, man, everybody's gonna look at you twice because the verdict is kind of out. So don't really know where Povetkin goes from here. I mean, does he beat Wilder? No. Does he beat Fury? Absolutely not. Does he beat Anthony Joshua? No way. So this win for Povetkin is kind of like a runners up because he's not going to get any of those top three guys. And if he does, then you will see the difference. Then you will see the difference between the elite guys at that weight class and everybody else. And by elite, I mean just those three. There are some young guys coming. I feel like will give Povetkin problems. I think Povetkin, if he's a man of his conviction, would give Michael Hunter a rematch, and we know that's probably not going to happen. So, it is what it is. But that was a good fight while it lasted, and obviously the better man won. I would give Dillian White credit though. Answered the questions like an adult. Didn't blame anyone but himself. Said he felt like he just made a mistake, and in a fight with a seasoned vet, you cannot have any mental lapses, and he did, and it cost him the fight. I respect that. Respect it more so because I've been training a lot lately, and you really have to be dialed in at all times. Whether it be boxing or MMA, you got to be dialed in at all times. You have to have extreme laser-like focus because one mistake and your lights literally could be out, and that's what happened to Dillian White. So Eddie Hearn, that one worked out for him. That one worked out for him, and that was also the Delphine Persoon Katie Taylor fight, which got rave reviews from everybody. I missed that fight, but it sounds like Katie Taylor escaped by the hair on her chinny chin chin. By all accounts, a lot of people thought it felt like Delphine Persoon won that fight. I'd have to go back and watch it. I didn't get a chance to see it live, so I have to go and check it out, and in that way I can make an informed decision for myself. But it sounds like it was too close to call, especially for Katie to come in with those belts. But to beat the champ, you got to beat the champ, right? That's something that we all know. We kind of forget sometimes. We feel like fighters, that we lean towards for whatever reason should get decisions. But hey, to beat the champ, it's got to be convincing. Meaning, you don't leave it up to the judges. You either stop him or you make him quit. Anything other than that, there's going to be a shot. There's going to be a chance that one of those three judges are not going to see it in your way and that they'll see it in their favor, and now you up the creek. So, yep. With that being said, great fight, ladies. We want to see more women putting it out there. I'm also all for women going 3 rounds. I believe in equal pay. So women fight 3 rounds. They deserve to get that same kind of money men get. Now, on the flip side of that, can they sell out? Can they pack the arena? Can they put butts in the seats? I think they can. Right now, there's only a select few that can do it, but I think they can. So, I'm all for the whole equal pay for equal fight thing, if that particular slogan is a thing. What else happened this weekend? What other fights did we get? We got oh wow, yes. Fundora against Nathaniel Gallimore. If you didn't see that fight, you got to check it out. That was a good fight. It was a good fight if you were Fundora and not Nathaniel Gallimore, who most of us that follow boxing felt like that was going to be a good fight for Gallimore, but definitely a fight that Gallimore could win. But when I tell you after watching the fight, maybe he couldn't have won it. I don't think there was much he could do throughout the fight. I don't know if there's much of a game plan that he could have implemented that wouldn't require him having a wholesale change of his fight DNA to where he's going to win that fight. I mean, at 6'6" fight at 154. That's unheard of. I don't think there's been a fighter out there that has been that tall fighting in that weight class. Secondly, just his grit. I mean, he's giving up so much when he fires the way that he does. Because if you watch Fundora fight, he doesn't use his length at all. Not like how he should. You know, and he comes to fight that Mexican style that he talked about. He put it on display Saturday night, and he got Nathaniel Gallimore out of there. I seen Julian J. Rock Williams tweet that he was the one to break the quote unquote invincibility of Nathaniel Gallimore in their win. But I can tell you this, man, that kid is a ferocious fighter, and he comes to fight and he gives it at his all. But to see Fundora do the way that he didn't do him the way that he did, it makes you wonder if Nate should be. I don't want to say that he should be thinking about retirement, but if he's not willing to make some wholesale or strategic changes in his training, maybe, or his trainer, or his approach to the fight, we're gonna see more fights like this because people know they know how they have to fight him now. And I mean, Fundora was literally giving up all of his height and was still making him pay. I mean, I don't know if Nate blew his load early in the fight when he was trying to get inside and do a little dirty boxing and push Fundora around, but he must have underestimated Fundora's strength because after the third round, when I say Fundora had his foot on his neck, his foot was on his neck. So, shouts out to Fundora for getting the win. I'm trying to think what else was there. We got to see the kid Joey Spencer in action. Joey Spencer is a big time prospect that PBC has been building up. He fights in I think Spencer is the 160 class, 154. Either way, he in there with a bunch of killers. But he's the youngest one out of the group, and the kid looks good. Looks good. Looks like he's gonna have a good career in boxing. I can say that. I'm trying to think. What else did we miss? Oh yes, the MMA fights. My partner got to catch most of them. What I did see of the main event fight, the Edgar versus Frankie Edgar, I can't think of his opponent right now, but it was a pretty good fight. I missed the first two rounds, so I'm not sure what Frankie was able to do, but based on my homeboy told me, the dude didn't have an answer as far as Frankie's movement, his boxing ability. When I did see the fight, it was late in the fight, and I could tell that they were just getting a little fatigued. You could see that, but again, you have to be able to keep all that stuff together, man. Those things happen. But I just thought that what I saw, I thought that Munoz, that was his name, Munoz. I thought that Munoz in the rounds that I saw 3, 4, and 5, I thought he landed the most significant strikes. But I was told by my counterpart that the first 2 rounds clearly went to the vet, Frankie Edgar. So if what I saw in the last 3 rounds was competitive and close, and my counterpart says that Frankie Edgar took the first 2, I can see how he got his hands raised. But it was a good fight and a competitive fight nonetheless. Other than that, we got some great fights coming up in the UFC. Colby Covington versus Tyrone Woodley, man. I am really looking forward to that fight. This might be Tyrone's swan song. Tyrone has had 2 rough outings. We saw him get mauled by Kamaru Usman, and then we pretty much saw a repeat of the same performance against Gilbert Burns. Now we're seeing Tyrone going against Colby Covington, who is a very, very good wrestler. So he's going to probably bring the same type of style that Burns and Usman brought. Maybe not quite to that level, but he's going to press the issue with Tyrone Woodley, and he's going to come to fight. We saw Colby in there with Kamaru early in the year, and Colby came to fight. He stood in the pocket, and they let them things go. I don't know if he should fight Woodley that way just because Woodley is still very athletic and he still has that right hand. He depends on it, in my opinion, far too much, but he still has it. I'm not sure if Kobe, based on what I saw in the Usman fight, has the boxing acumen to stay safe for 5 rounds from that right hand. So I think Kobe should probably stick to more the wrestling and try to be the aggressor, try to get Woodley up against that cage and kind of keep him there, like you saw Usman do, which looks like he does it to everybody, and like what you saw Gilbert Burns do as well. Um, we do know that Kamaru will come out. I mean, I'm sorry, not Kamaru. We do know that Tyrone will come out, and that first round, he's gonna feel Kobe out. He's gonna come out punching. He's gonna come out aggressive, and it'll be up to Kobe. It'll be up to him to set the tempo of that fight and see how it plays out. Because I just don't think Woodley. I just don't think he's all the way there anymore. I think the age and I think that loss to Kamaru took something from him, and then to see it happen again, almost like on like a repeat performance to Gilbert Burns. I don't know how much he got left in him, but we'll see. If he doesn't have anything left in him, Kobe Covington will bring it out of him. Shout out to Mr. Khan. Hey, I'm doing pretty good, brother. How you doing? Appreciate you chiming in with us this evening. My dude, my guy. Yeah, it's all good, brother. How you doing, man? You gotta give me some of your fighters, man, over there from the All-Star stable, man. Come on the show and we can do some interviews, man. But I heard the card did really well over there, man. So congratulations for that, bro. I know you were a part of that whole production and getting that thing orchestrated. And I hope things are going well for you too, man. I look forward to seeing you soon as well. But the fight that's really got me hyped, man, is Paulo Costa, Israel Adesanya. I keep talking about that. That fight will be here before you know it. That is a big fight. That is a massive fight. And it is a fight that every combat sports fan, whether you're in boxing or MMA, should be looking forward to that fight. Stylistically, from a perception standpoint, that is the fight. I mean, you got two guys that couldn't be totally different from each other. Personality-wise, their character, their fighting styles, their physiques, everything is just like on two different ends, but they're both very good. I can't wait to see it. I'm hyped. I like Israel a lot. I like Israel a lot. But something about Paulo, when I saw Paulo do what he did to Yoel Romero, I'm like, you know what? This guy might have something. And the fact he's so strong. And I heard he walks around at about 220, 225, and he's got to cut down to 185. And if you've seen Paulo Costa, ain't much to cut. Brother, like he looks like a specimen. And I don't say that about many men, but this dude, and the crazy part is if he's cutting weight, I don't know where he's cutting it from. Like, he's that lean already at 225. To cut down to 185, man, I don't even want to know. I've been in some MMA camps. I've been backstage at weigh-ins, and I've seen the things that happen to fighters that have to cut too much weight too soon. But I guess Paulo's got it down to a science, and he's had a full 6 to 8 week camp, so I'm sure he'll be ready. But I'm extremely hyped by that fight. You should be too if you love combat sports. That's going to be a good one. Man, Dana White just keep winning. You know, he's becoming more offensive by the minute, but as someone that never really paid much attention to Dana White, the person, the character, from what I've been told, this is not much different than how he's always been. So I guess I'm only surprised because I never paid him any attention until recently. So, hey, whatever it takes. But I can tell you this, the man keep winning. The UFC, every week, they're making it happen. So shouts out to Dana White for helping all combat sports fans get through this pandemic, because the UFC was the first ones to jump out there, and they put on some great cards for the whole entire world's viewing pleasure. And I seen a lot of boxers appreciative because we just want to see fights. So we want to give Dana White his roses while I can still smell them in this regard. So, you know, shouts out to him in the UFC for what they got going on. Now back on to the boxing home front. I don't know who we got coming up this week. I gotta check. But I know that coming up for the month of September, we got some big fights. We got Eric Slubin against Terrell Gausha. I'm looking forward to that one. I'm not going to talk about that fight too much because of a relationship that I have with Lubin. But I will say this, man. Terrell is coming to fight. He is the consummate professional, illustrious black background, and an Olympian. So he is not a pushover, and there's legitimate beef there. These two guys, they really want to fight. They don't care much for each other. I'm not gonna go out on a limb and say that there's a deep seated dislike. It's not that. They don't even know each other like that. But due to what's been going on social media and people calling people out, it's some legitimate beef there. So this fight really finna happen. We finna see what's what. So that'll take place on September 19th. So make sure y'all tap in for that. That is the same night as the Tyrone Woodley Kobe Covington fight. But you already know the UFC. They're gonna start late, so you can tune in to Showtime, watch Hammer versus Gachet, and then flip right on over to the UFC stream, pay-per-view stream, and catch Woodley against Covington. The week after that, though, you got the Charlo brothers. Big Charlo, Twin Charlo, Mel Mall, however you want to dice them up. We don't want to say Big Charlo. I think Jamal said he's going to go by Mr. Charlo now because Big Charlo offends Jamel. These guys are weird. But yeah, both guys will have their own pay-per-view on September 26th. They'll be at different times. One fight will be in the afternoon and one fight will be in the evening. But both guys have been allowed by PBC to have their own separate pay-per-view events. So we'll get to see what both guys got. Who moves the needle? I will say this, though. If you're the guy that has to go first, if you're fighting in the afternoon, you better hope you pull some of the overseas crowd because a middle of the day fight is a tough sell. Even if it's a good fight people want to see, it's still a tough sell. Saturday, kids are back in school. Things are kind of feeling somewhat normal, but not really because you still got to be masked up to go into most places. And kids, for the most part, are going to school virtual. I know at least for the first few weeks. So, you know, but things are, you got NBA, NFL finna get back in the swing of things. So things are feeling kind of normal. So people may not be sitting at home on Saturday afternoon anymore. People were trying to get out. So it's going to be tough. But whoever goes first, I think Jamel goes first. I hope he does well because if his pay-per-view numbers don't do well, we'll probably hear about it on a public platform as to why people don't support me and whatever because he's just extremely emotional. Very, very, very good fighter, but very, very emotional. And then Mr. Charlo Jamal will conclude the night with his own pay-per-view stream. Now, I will say this. Both brothers are matched tough. And I don't mean that to try to sell the fight. Obviously, Jason Rosario is to be shown the utmost respect by taking a couple of belts up off of Julian J. Rock Williams. So now this is the unification fight that Jamila's been wanting. So this is real big for 154. Like I said, the week before that, you got Lubin against Gachet, who's in that fight is for quote unquote the winner of the Rosario Charlo fight. But I don't see that happening that quick because I also think the Lubin Gachet fight may be for the vacant interim WBA belt. I gotta check my sources on that. I may be wrong. But I think I am. Okay. No, that's right. Yeah. Because Jamal James has that same belt at 147. So yeah, I think Gachet and Lubin would be for the interim WBA belt. And Lubin is already the number one contender for the WBC. So it's going to be a little trickeration going on there. So I'm sure everybody's going to be plugged in to see that. And then the main event or on a separate fight later that night, you got Jamal Charlo against Sergey Derevchenko. Listen, I'm a fan of Jamal Charlo. I think he is a good fighter. But I think it's time to see some more wrinkles in his game. We saw him do some pretty cool stuff at 154. A lot of us felt like that was just because he was just such a big guy in that weight class, he could get away with it. Now that he's at 160, we got to see him do something. The last time we saw him was against Brandon Adams back in last June, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's the last time we saw Jamal Charlo. So he's in there against Sergey Derevchenko. We know Derevchenko, last time we saw him, was against Triple G. Some people thought he won that fight. I'm not going to speak that highly, but he did have a great showing of himself, and we know he can box his ass off. Sergey Derevchenko is not to be taken lightly. as Danny Jacobs and as Triple G. This kid comes to fight. If I'm not mistaken, he's being trained by Andre Rozier still. So he has a world class trainer in his corner. It's going to be interesting. Charlo better be ready. Jamal better be ready. Um, Jermel against Rosario. Jermel better be ready. Now, I will say this Rosario has been stopped. He was stopped by Nathaniel Gallimore, the same guy I was talking about earlier that had taken a loss to Fundora. So I can't pick anybody in that fight, nor will I, but I will say this. I think Jermel will probably need to box a little bit more. I'll say that. I know that Jamel has had a lot of success lately. He stopped everyone he's been in the ring with. I think his last four opponents, he stopped them all. Um, but Rosario is very big guy at 54. And I think Rosario is in a much better place than he was when he fought Gallimore. So I don't know if the approach that Jamel takes with each fight is the approach to take with this fight. But I will also say this: if it's not broken, then you don't need to fix it. He has been succeeding under Derrick James' tutelage, and he's been getting the stoppages. So we'll see what it is. What it is. We'll see what it's going to be when those two young men step in the ring. But I can tell you what, I would be very surprised if that fight goes 12 rounds. I'll just leave it at that. What else we got? We got T.O. and Loma coming up. That's going to be a barn burner. I can't wait to see that one. Again, we don't make predictions on this show, but I think Loma has to come out and be smart and just box. I don't think Teofimo, based on what I saw, can keep up with Lomachenko when he boxes. And for T.O., he's got to come out and try to set the tone. Come out, touch him early, make him uncomfortable. Make him uncomfortable and work your jab because we have seen Loma susceptible to straight jabs. So I'm sure I am almost 100% positive that that T.O. has watched all the film he needs to see on Loma to know where his weaknesses are. Again, there's an age differential. I think there's even a certain I think T.O. I think he has some a little nasty in him. I think he got a little dog in him. Haven't ever seen that come out of Loma. Not saying it's not there. Just never seen it. I've seen the dog come out of Teofimo Lopez in person. Um, so I think if he comes out and just tries to set the tone early, get a lot of respect from Loma, that's going to make the fight a lot easier for him. Because one thing the kid does have, he has a very explosive, very twitchy, very reflexive hands. Teofimo has good hands. He's not elite like Gary Russell and Amir Khan, not like that, but he has good hands. And he's a strong kid. And listen, he likes to throw punches that hurt. So he's going to come in. He's not going to take it easy. He's going to come in going for broke. So I'm looking forward to that one. So we will see what happens. I think I've just run down everything. I don't know what other fights we got left. We'll say this, though. What do you all think about a Jodeci versus Boys to Men versus? I heard that's in the works. And nowadays, ain't no more R&B. Let's face it. There are no more R&B groups. R&B doesn't even get pushed on the radio like it used to. The radio stations that play R&B, they're becoming secondary stations. They're having to play top 40 and rhythmic and other things just to kind of keep up because everything's kind of turning into hip hop and pop. So, yeah, I just think that they got to be ready. And you got to put your best foot forward. And that's what we're seeing most people do out there now. A lot of these fighters are coming out and they're putting their best foot forward. And you got to give them credit for it. Those that aren't taking advantage, you may not get a second chance. So, I guess that's pretty much it. Let me see if I forgot anything. I did want to kind of talk briefly about the whole Terrence Crawford Keith Thurman thing, but it's not even a story. Um, Keith Thurman is in a position where he's trying to get fights right now, and you know how the mighty have fallen in so many words. Keith was uh, on top 2.5 years ago, and there were some guys that were trying to get fights with Keith, but Keith kind of you know shunned him. So now that the shoe's under the foot, now he's being very aggressive in his pursuit of trying to get some big names to get in the ring with him. And at this point, I think for Keith, based on what we've been seeing with him lately, man, look, just stay active, try to keep your weight down, man, and just try to get you a fight. There are a lot of guys coming up at 147. There are a lot of guys that, that'll give you a good round, that'll give you some good rounds, a la Josecito Lopez, hopefully minus the almost near knockout. But yeah, I think these things can all happen for Keith, and I feel like it's probably the best thing for Keith to do right now. Just go ahead and get active, get you a good fight in, look good, look like the Keith Thurman of old, get your body 100% ready, be in shape, and give the fans more of a reason to want to see you against some of these elite fighters. Because quiet is kept, the last member that we have of Keith Thurman was getting a split decision loss to Manny Pacquiao. Now, should that diminish his success and his name in the sport? No, it doesn't. But we're learning about sports and in society in general. So what have you done for me lately, business? And Keith hasn't done anything for PBC or himself other than take a loss. So he has to go to the proverbial back of the line, I think, which is only two or three people because Keith Thurman is still a top five welterweight in my humble opinion. But yeah, get you a good fight in, man, and get in there and feel good, get your weight down and fight and get a stoppage, man. People aren't worried about one time anymore. People saw old man Manny take them shots from you, bro, without flinching. Now we know he ended up going to the hospital after the fact. But in the ring, man, you couldn't tell he was hurt. So, Keith, you got to get it together, man, and get back in the win column. Get you a fight, get back in the win, become, look good, and then the phone will start ringing from the other end. Or at least when you talk to certain people, or, certain guys ask about you, however that happens, they'll be more inclined to take the fight now because, okay, he's back. And one thing about Thurman, he has an exciting fight style, so he always put butts in the seats. So, Keith, if you're listening, that's probably the best way to go about it, brother, instead of running behind people trying to get fights because it's making you look kind of desperate. So, well, family, that is all I got. I'm surprised I made this long flying solo. Really ain't got much else to talk about. I want to give a shout to everybody that tuned in with us, man. Khan, my dog Ivan, Pops, and everybody that tuned in and watched us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow because that's where we at. We on the Beatdown. You know where you at. You know why you're here. We do this every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Fighter Share Report on every Sunday and Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we're gonna make some changes, man. We're gonna get this show where we need it to be. We're gonna get the viewership where we need it to be, and we will be coming to a big screen near you, I'm pretty sure, soon. Shout out to my partner, Brew, on assignment, handling some real man business. He'll be back tomorrow in case y'all don't like seeing my face on the screen. Tap in with your family, man. This pandemic is real. Mental health is real. It's weighing down on a lot of people. So like I always say, just a hello, just I'm thinking about you, just check in with your people. That can make a big difference between life and death because this is real. And people leaving here every day, sometimes intentional. And you don't want people to be leaving here when they don't think that people care about them or love them. So again, if you got people that you ain't talking to on a regular basis, or that you ain't spoke to in a while for whatever reason, maybe life just pulls you apart, reach back out, man. Let them know that you're thinking about them, and that you love them. Those things are very important. Also, shout out to all my entrepreneurs out there, man. Listen, don't quit. Don't quit. The marathon continues. Success is always around the corner, but you never get there if you quit. So stay in, stay tied in with us. And that's it, man. We're ready to go. Fight Nation, I appreciate y'all for rocking with your boy Solo. I'm out of here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.